Two guys, one bench. Okay, everybody, welcome to Two Guys, One Bench. My name is Russell Peel.
I'm Dorrell Petties.
And let's start this party off right. We got some extra strength salts from Ward Smelling Salts. It's been a long day. We need to get a little bit of wake up call here. Oh, shit. Oh. All right. You ever need an extra hit while you're doing your sessions, or hey, even at work, having a long day? Give those a go. Okay, so this is our first podcast, and we're really excited because we've been talking about this for a while, and finally we're here. So a little explanation of who we are. I'm going to go over a little intro of myself. My name is Russell Peel, and in terms of strength training, I've been hitting it hard for the last 7 years. Last year I came in first place at super heavyweight for the 100% Raw Federation. So that was a world title, so I'm pretty excited about that. A little bit before that, between 2002 and 2013, I was living in Japan, went out there on a whim, started teaching English, got into martial arts, eventually got into fighting, fought at pretty high level, professional level in K1, and then started training with a bunch of crazy athletes that were fighting in Pride Fighting Championships, UFC, and multiple other big time organizations. But now my main focus is to be a coach in both powerlifting and MMA, as well as providing motivation for you guys out there and personal training. So that's where I am right now.
So, my name's Dorrell Petties. Much like Russ, I'm currently a powerlifter. I wasn't always a powerlifter. This wasn't really the goal of the sport. My whole life, I grew up playing basketball up to the point of playing D1 and D2 down in the States, down in West Florida and Alabama. After that, injuries kind of pushed me out of the sport, so I was looking for something to do. I was always kind of just being a gym bro for a few years, but I've been powerlifting now for going on 2.5 years. Last, I think it was October, I competed at my first Worlds and also in the 100% Raw Federation and got first place in my weight class, so I guess a world title for myself as well. Currently, I'm the #1 deadlifter in the Federation with a 800-pound pull in competition. Top 13 deadlifter in Canada. So yeah, right now for me, I'm a personal trainer, powerlifting coach, and biggest thing for me currently is just push my numbers, see how far I can go, but also push my team and everyone I coach and just be the best trainer possible.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Yeah, Dorrell doesn't pump his tires enough, but he's definitely one of the strongest deadlifters in Canada. And I will say he has been drug tested 5 times in the last, 2-3 years?
2 years.
2 years. So we do get heavily tested. So we are, one of our big things is we are natural lifters. We don't take any performance enhancing drugs other than buffets, Chinese buffets, and all you can eat sushi. That's what we're on.
Bunch of sodium.
I'm on the vodkas, but Dorrell doesn't drink. So anyways, we're really adamant about that. So, and we don't really mind if you're into the PEDs as long as you're in an untested federation, right?
Yeah, no one really cares outside of the competition what you're doing. As long as you're open and honest with what you're doing, I don't have a problem with it. There's a bunch of people that are faking the sport and just cheating people there to get their $5 trophies.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll tell you, we were talking earlier today, but even in fighting at a professional level to get to the top ranks to make money, there's a very small chance. So, when I was fighting in Japan, a couple of the shows, they would just give me tickets to sell. So, here's 20 tickets, sell them for, $80 each, and then that's how much you'll make to fight. And, sadly, that's the way a lot of promoters work. And in powerlifting, it's money. It's not a money sport, so it's about the glory. So I feel it's it's useless to be taking massive amounts of PEDs to basically have nothing other than just the glory, right?
Yeah, for me, I don't see the point of doing it. I'm all for it. If you want to take it and test and compete in an untested fed, all the power to you. I'm just more concerned with anybody if you're in a tested federation, then you should stick by that. There's no point lying just to try and cheat other people, because at the end of the day what you're doing is right or wrong, and you might as well go compete with other people. Just be open and honest with things.
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure powerlifting's one of the most unique sports where you do have that choice, like other than bodybuilding, but the same thing with our situation. Even all natural bodybuilders, I know a lot of guys that do shows and still cheat. So but where else can you do a sport where there's the tested league doing the same thing, and then there's the untested? I mean, it's not really there other than what we're doing. So so I feel like you have an advantage because you can choose either one. Like, let's say if there was a Juice Pig basketball league,
yeah,
how well would that go?
Yeah, there's no other sport that compares. And when you're, for the most part, professional sports, you're talking about the top 1% of 1% athletes. These are people that pretty much, for the most part, any sport you put them in, they're going to excel at. So it's not as prevalent. Obviously, there's people always trying to get an edge on someone, but there's no league where there's untested and tested for a reason. With us, there's a giant difference for the most part. People that are untested and tested, I shouldn't say giant, but there is a difference, and it's for a reason. No other sport really sees what you're capable of with your body just based off strength and nothing else alone. In basketball, no one cares about how much you can bench press or how high you can jump only. It's a skill sport. What we're doing is just raw physical strength, and obviously there's going to be an advantage to that if you're on PEDs.
Yeah, for sure. So we're done our shit talking for the day on that subject. But what we want to go into is basically we're going to go in segments. So right now we're going to go into what's going on in strength sports. So that could be powerlifting, strongman, some other strength sports.
Yes, powerlifting, strongman. Technically, you could count CrossFit, but we're not going to talk about it for obvious reasons.
Weightlifting. Yeah, primarily the things that we look at on Instagram and YouTube, we're focused more on strongman and powerlifting, but we won't count out anything else. When we see it, something impressive, obviously, we're going to talk about it. So earlier we were talking about some lifts that were going on this weekend. You're telling me.
I was watching Yuri Belkin's meet. I don't know where exactly it was held. I think it was over in Russia. And we were talking about just the consistency in judging needs to be better for the sport to be really grow and be taken more seriously, because his third attempt squat, I personally felt he got robbed, but he got 2 red lights on it and somehow the head judge gives him a red light. I don't understand how a head judge is going to be able to tell depth from the front. It's literally impossible.
That's not their job either, right?
Yeah, you're there for one thing, commands, and if he falls, obviously you're going to give him a red, but following commands. But it needs to be a little more uniform. That's why, so then you don't see all these guys breaking world records and world record totals and all-time totals in their backyard. But then when they get into an international meet, for some reason they can't hit these lifts. It's because depending on who they are, there's bias with certain refs and judges.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you remember at Worlds, but I got a red light by the same judge for every lift I did. That was pretty awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous because it doesn't help you as a lifter when you don't know what to expect. If you've gone 2 years with never having to adjust your squat depth, and then day of, you realize you're squatting high. It's like, well, I'm sorry to say you're pretty much going to be behind the 8 ball on this one, because there's nothing you're going to really be able to change if you've gotten away with it for 2 years and never knew anything was wrong with it. And now they want to be sticklers for depth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but I believe it was a year or two ago, but Thor did his, I don't know if it was first powerlifting meet, but I believe it might have been.
Yeah, about 2 years ago when he hosted one overseas. Yeah.
And I remember his third attempt, it was his own gym. He had judges come in, and I think he sank that squat completely. It was to depth, and then he got called. So in my opinion, I think he was robbed, and you see it all the time. But if he really wanted to put his mind to it, he could destroy any record out there, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's not really much else he couldn't do in terms of powerlifting.
Yeah.
So it just kind of makes me think of just want to bring up his 501 deadlift.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know a lot of people are on the fence out there. Like, did he make it? Was it fair? Well, it was during COVID. It was with his own weights. Anybody who argues that because he did it on his own, it's not legitimate, for me, I just think you probably haven't trained before and competed, because I don't know how you feel, but I know for myself, anytime I'm in a competition, I'm way stronger than I am in the gym. So to hit an all-time world record by yourself with no one else to compete with is way harder. It is very hard to test your numbers when you have no motivation other than yourself, when you just have to convince yourself, I'm going to do this right now. So I know one of the biggest guys leading the charge on that was Eddie Hall, and it's actually funny. It's pretty funny to see his argument with him of being, oh, it's not a competition, so other guys didn't have a chance to break it too. Well, Eddie, if that was the case, why didn't everyone break it when you attempted it? There's a reason for it, because not everyone can do it. Just because you're pulling 501 doesn't mean everyone else there is going to pull 501. It doesn't work that way. You might get a couple more pounds, but you're not going to get 20, 30 kilos out of the bar because your competition is out pulling you.
Yeah, for sure. That I feel like that in competition boost that you get, definitely, you should be setting records on the platform instead of, in the gym. And that being said, I'd like to bring up the fact that I watch a lot of guys and they're hitting these awesome records before their meets. And then when it comes to the meet, oh shit, they can't lift what they're hitting in the gym.
Yeah.
And, I know there's weight cuts, but that's a little bizarre for me. I don't know.
Just goes to, for me, anytime I see guys hit a huge weight and then they're nowhere near that in competition. Now I understand if it's a deadlift and you hit a huge one outside and then in a comp you don't, because there's a lot of factors to go into it. How quick was your meet? How short were the breaks in your flight? How many people were in your flight? How long of a day was it? Because that can all affect it. Did you try and PR your squat? But if you're out there with a huge squat and then you get to a meet and can't hit that same number and nowhere close to it, obviously it seems to me that something big changed in your life. So for me, it usually points to either you're dodging a drug test if it's in a tested federation, but untested feds, I don't know. I can't explain why some guys just drop off. It might be competition anxiety, but I just don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, that being said, let's do a little segue. Usually the next section we're going to do is combat sports, and this fits in perfectly because we've been talking about Eddie and Thor. And, well, if you haven't gotten the news flash, those two giant men are going to clash about a year from now in Vegas in a boxing event. So obviously this is it's more of like a Logan Paul type boxing event. They're not professional, but just like Logan Paul, and they had more viewers than most boxing matches ever, right? So it might even hit those numbers. So we've been talking a bit about that, and Dorrell and I are not the biggest fans of Mr. Hall, Eddie Hall. He comes off as this overly cocky guy that, you know, he talks a lot of shit, and even in his YouTube videos, he's definitely, you know, pushing buttons. And I don't know, in my opinion, I think Thor, I've actually met him before, and he's a complete kind of softy, very soft-spoken, giant guy, and it would take a lot to piss him off, but I think he's getting there. So
all Eddie reminds me of, for the most part, is I feel like we've all ran across an Eddie Hall in our life. All he is the big bully, and as soon as he gets punched in his face, he's not the same guy. I think we already saw that with his deadlift. It's funny how he was complaining about Thor breaking a world record, which happened to be his, but he wasn't saying shit when people were trying to break log press records or stone records, or Mark Felix breaking the Hercules hold record. He didn't have shit to say then, but when it's his record, he wants to chime in. And for the most part, I feel like he's just done more talking than actual training. And it just, anybody in anything can be good for a brief amount of time. And obviously, I'm not taking anything from it. He did win the world's strongest man. He's probably stronger than he's stronger than I'll ever be, but he did it for a short stint while other guys are still doing it. So yeah, you can't take anything from longevity.
And he was one of those guys that he knew he had to stop because, you know, he's roughly 6'2". He says 3, but it's 2. And he was, you know, 440 pounds, and he was, you know, on death's door after every event, huffing onto an oxygen tank. And when you're that big, your body can't handle it. Me being right now, I'm ranged between 350 and 360, and I'm having a hard time with things. So I can't imagine, and the amount of calories plus all the extra supplements that those guys take, and I don't mean protein shakes, that takes a large toll on your body. So definitely, I think for me, this match, because I have a background in both of these areas, combat sports and, you know, strength sports. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm seeing Thor pick up technique and moving much better right now than Eddie. I think he's been surrounding himself with a bunch of yes men. He's got his one boy toy living with him in his giant new house, and he just beats the shit out of him. And you know, other than that, I don't think he's sparring anybody. We just recently saw a video this week. Thor did 5-6 rounds of sparring, which is impressive. You know, that's not an easy task, and some of the guys look pretty skilled, and he held his own. He's a giant man. He's got a huge reach, and with that power, all he's got to do is just hit that jab up, and he'll be sending Eddie knocked out onto the canvas for sure, in my opinion. Another thing we're talking about is what Eddie's strategy. I can tell he's been doing a Philly shell, which is here like this, right? So on camera, this is my right hand, this is my left. So his left hand is dropped the entire time, and Thor, who is a southpaw, that's kind of where his jab is at, right? He's standing this way, he's going to be able to jab at him and just circle away from Eddie's power hand. So in my opinion, it'll be a short night unless Eddie, you know, pulls some luck out of his ass, but you never know.
Yeah, for the most part, like, I just want to preference this by saying I obviously don't have the combat experience, but just from watching what I watch, you can tell when someone moves athletically in training and someone who moves like a complete beginner. And it translates to every sport, really. Some people just are natural athletes. I understand Eddie was a high-level swimmer, but that doesn't.
So that means he has a good, he's got good lungs.
But I don't think that translates to how he is on his feet, because you see it in his movements. He's trying to throw everything in every punch, and he's too tense. everything about him looks
Well, let me ask
unathletic
you
on
one
his
thing.
feet.
Who's going to win between a fight between a fucking giant gorilla or a beached walrus?
Yeah.
Because that's what fight we're looking at here. We're looking at a good swimmer with a giant specimen, athletic specimen. So I think it'll be the walrus beatdown, in my opinion. Not that walruses are, weak. We've got a buddy Josh. He's the walrus.
Yeah.
But he ain't kicking Thor's ass, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't see it going past 2 rounds, just off the fact that Eddie will probably gas out within the first 30 seconds.
Yeah. And I know me personally being in a ring, and doesn't matter what you do in training, who you spar, or even the amount, like he's really loving hitting pads. Like anybody can hit pads and look good.
They don't hit back.
But yeah, pads don't hit back. But what I'm saying is, he's in for a rude awakening when you got the nerves. And then how many people are going to be packed in those stadiums? It's going to be more fans than they've ever seen, whether COVID allows it or not, we'll see. But it's just the big lights. You step into a ring and then you start going crazy and you gas out quick. You see it a lot in the UFC when people have their debut fight. They usually, a lot of them shit the bed just because they're so overwhelmed by the experience. So
get that adrenaline dump.
Yeah, that's another experience.
That flurry of walking out and amping yourself up to the point that you have nothing left by the time they call your name.
If it's their first fight, the thing is, like, when you're walking down towards a ring or a cage or whatever, there's no one, I don't care what people say that, oh, I never get nervous. I'm like, fuck that. You're going to be nervous as you can never be. And one of my favorite fighters, Cowboy Cerrone, he always says, he's in the back puking, he's nervous, but a lot of times he goes out there and performs like an animal. Sometimes he has bad performances, or gets nervous, like really big main events, like we saw with Connor. He kind of just lost focus and let Connor take advantage. But I'm just saying, like, there's very few. The only ones I would say that probably had nerves of steel back in the day were probably Fedor Emelianenko back in the Pride Fighting Championships. I mean, that guy just had the stone cold Russian face and just walks down the ramp, and it was kind of very intimidating if you were in the ring waiting for him to see him come in, no emotion on his face, and then execute his plan perfectly. So, and maybe a few guys out there, but when people tell you,
Vanderlei, when he
Vanderlei was so high on speed and fucking tremboloni sandwiches that, I mean, he probably didn't even know where he was. He was like, just swing for the fences. Probably, yeah, an awesome explosive fighter, but if you look at his technique, it's not good. And he got exposed a lot with higher end strikers such as, Crow Cop. I was actually in Japan. I was living there from 2002 to 2013. So I went to a lot of those Pride events as well. And I was there when Crow Cop won the Open Grand Prix. So he knocked out Wanderlei Silva, and then Josh Barnett and Nogueira had a war. Barnett beat him by decision, and it was mostly a grappling match. So that says a lot about catch wrestling, which is more my style. Anyways, never mind. Not shit talking BJJ, but I'm just saying, Sakuraba, Barnett, killing it. But then at the end, Crow Cop was just too much for Barnett, and he was gassed out from his previous fight. And he basically tapped out to getting ground and pounded. Then Crow Cop won that fight. So high-end strikers like that usually always expose kind of, brawlers. I'm not sure. You mentioned you didn't watch the fights last night.
No, I didn't see these weeks.
I think so. Overeem, who is, I can't believe he's still fighting. It's amazing. It's amazing that he can still talk and not be, completely punch drunk, because that guy has been knocked out more than anybody I've ever seen, like flatlined, and he can still.
Yeah, he's had crazy highs, but also a lot of lows.
Yeah. So last night, Alessio Sakai, he's an up and coming guy from Brazil. he has the worst body I've ever seen. Not ever, but it's up there. He looked like a big sack of dough spewed over a giant kind of rack of ribs, but it was not good. And I don't get how heavyweights, I mean, I love it when the fat guy wins because I'm one of them, but I don't get how they can be so in such bad shape. But this guy was known for being a brawler and knocking some guys out. And what I saw from Overeem was that he played it safe, and he covered up. His defense was tight. He covered up, full on, shelled up by the cage when the guy was doing his barrages. And most people thought that Sakai was winning the fight through the first few rounds, but I kind of knew in the background that Overeem was playing it smart and waiting for this guy to gas out. And sure enough, he was able to secure a few takedowns, I believe, or one takedown at the end of round 3. And then round 4, a bunch of the same. And then finally round 5, he unleashed a series of crazy elbows and fists to Sakai's head. And he was basically, the fight was called off. So for me, it was, I'm always happy for these guys that have been around forever to win, especially old school. He's 41, just like me. But I remember I've seen him fight live in Japan when, he was my age. He was a skinny kid. He used to come down the ramp with a giant wooden hammer. But he had some battles. So way to go, Overeem. Big fights coming up in a week or two.
I think it's 2 weeks.
26th.
The Israel Adesanya fight and Paulo Costa.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know how you feel about it, but I gotta put my bias to the side and look at it just what they are. And for me, I just see Paulo Costa walking through him. It's not going to be as easy as just first round knockout.
Yeah.
But for me, what I've seen in both of their fights, because I remember when Costa was not as big of a name when he fought Uriah Hall.
Yeah.
He can take a beating, and he wasn't getting put away by Hall, but the fact that Hall, for the most part, was holding his own, hitting him, and Costa was just picking his spots. I think it was the second or third round when he just finished him. Because when he explodes on someone, there's not much they have for him. The only guy who's really sat there and traded with him is Yoel, which I personally thought he lost to Yoel, but we're here now. So, but Israel to me just seems like a lot of hype. I know everyone's been saying it for a while, and it seems like, oh, you're just a hater because he's skinny. It's like, yeah, but at the same time, he fought Yoel Romero, talked all that shit, and never pressed the fight. And we wanted to push the narrative that Yoel's scared of him. But if you go back and watch Yoel in almost every single fight, he will not chase you. He stands in the middle, and he's going to counter. So if you don't come at him, he's not going at you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Stylebender is definitely impressive. He's up and coming. But I think it's like he's trying to cash, checks that haven't been written yet. He's not the greatest that ever, fought. And he's just one knockout away from, having that aura being kind of shredded from him. And, I think Calvin Gastelum showed him that, this tough a guy that's, another guy that can't put down the buffet plates as long. He should be getting into powerlifting, in my opinion. But he is thick, and he always fights in a weight class a little too heavy. I think he could probably get down to welter. But middleweight, he's a little too short. But he gave, that fight was close, came down the last round. And you saw by, Stylebender's face that was, that was one of the fights where you both end up in the hospital together. And you got to get CT scans, and a lot of people don't understand that all the guts and glory. But as a coach and a fighter, sometimes we come off a loss or a fight, and most of the evening is spent in a hospital. I remember getting knocked out, and I woke up and I was so angry that I couldn't go out and go party with my buddies and celebrate. I'm like, did I win? And they're like, no, you gotta knock the fuck out. So I was like, okay, where are we going? Oh, you're going to the hospital. You're gonna get a CT scan. And I just remember my brain being so fuzzy and like, you know, it's a pretty rough aspect of the sport. People don't realize that. So keep that in mind next time these guys give everything you got, everything they got to give you entertainment. I've actually, a couple of guys I coach, or one kid in particular, Eric, I've spent a few nights with him in the hospital. We're trying to cheer him up after a loss. So definitely tough. And maybe just a little bit of, you know, as a coach, explaining, you know, what would you do, or what do you do when some of your athletes have a bad day at the platform? You know, we've all been there. We haven't had it, you know, recently. Even you we did kind of a mock meet, but Dorrell was really pumped up. Everything was going great with his training camp, and he really wanted to hit 8:15, and he basically hit it 3 times without a lockout. So he really wanted it, but he couldn't get it. And I remember just seeing how emotional you get when you can't hit the number you want. But besides that, Dorrell had an amazing squat. He's actually over the 600-pound club now, 606, and an awesome bench press. So he's put that together. So, I mean, for me, when I was trying to make you feel, you know, a little more proud of yourself, like, look how much your total grew. Sometimes you won't get that extra poundage on the deadlift, but you made up for it with your
my other two.
Your other two. So that's the way you got to look at it. You got to look at the bright side. And I've never been in a meet where everything went perfect. That's just that. And if you're a lifter that does, you know, oh, I want to go 9 for 9. I'm like, fuck that shit.
I got with 9 for 9 since I've started with the first person that was coaching me. I kind of understood that going 9 for 9 means you probably didn't push hard enough.
No.
I know that's a stupid way to look at it to some people, but to me, if you're going 9 for 9, you're probably playing it way too safe, because unless you hit a PR, I would say 4 times during that meet, then okay, I understand it. Because for myself, I'm trying to hit my PR around second attempt, and then third attempt is fun. But I just don't see the point in going in 9 for 9, 9 for 9. Cool. So you never took a chance.
Yeah.
What's the point of doing anything if you're not going to take a chance? You don't go into a basketball game and say, I'm going to shoot 15 for 15. Guys in their mind think, I'm going to drop 30, I'm going to drop 40. I'm not saying I'm going to shoot 100% from the field, because it's not going to happen. Rare times it will happen. Very rare times, just like in anything. Everything goes as planned or feels like it, and things go great. But there's always something to improve on, and you just can't dwell on it. I know with myself, it's something I have to work on, because I'm very hard on myself. But I just got to look at things down the road. But in the moment, I know it's hard to get away from those negative thoughts. But yeah, I just wanted to riff on that, on the 9 for 9. I've always felt 9 for 9 is the most ridiculous thing in squatting. Like the video I sent Russ here, lifter Leonard Jones, who competes down in the States. I met him when he came up here for Worlds. He was in the 148 weight class. He just posted his lifts and was upset.
Hold on, shout out to our big man brother down there, Robert Gaines. Yeah, he's out there. He was out cheering on Leonard as well. So saw you out on social media, so just wanted to say hi. How's it going?
So back to what I was saying, Leonard just posted his 5 for 9, and he posted 5 for 9. His total grew. He set another record. I think it was personal best on the squat, and he only hit one of his deadlift and bench. So on the whole, everything got better because your total got better. You ended up with a higher Wilks, but he was like kind of down in the comments. Wasn't the day he wanted. You can still have a great day and not everything go as planned.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love the the world's format where the guy that lifts the most weight and has the biggest total wins. There's no Wilks scores. And the bigger you get, the more you realize that that's a small man's kind of number to chase.
Yeah,
in
it's
my
like
opinion.
small
And
man's game.
guys, you go to a meet, you lift more than a guy, and they'll go home with some money and some supplements and trophies because they were the one that was able to do it at the smallest body size or whatever. And it's like, come on, man. Like at the end of the day, I always say this, you know, the guy on the battlefield swinging the biggest axe is kicking the most asses. So, you know, that being said, I do respect fighters and lifters of all weight classes. So
I just think one thing to add in there, just another change on the powerlifting topic about the Wilks and how little guys always benefit. Because I realize you can't go everything by total, because then big guys, it caters to big guys. Well, the sport is about who lifts the most weight. When you play, I'll go back to basketball. When you play basketball, the game's about who scores the most points. It's not who had more dunks, that team wins. Who hits more threes, that team wins. We're not there for that. It should be plain and simple who lifted more weight. It's a sport where you can't realistically compare a lightweight person to a heavyweight person. Same in fighting. You can't realistically compare Jose Aldo to Fedor because it's too hard. You can't compare Anderson Silva to Demetrius Johnson. It's impossible.
But if you put all them in their prime, into the octagon,
the big man is going to win.
The heavyweight's always going to win. I hate to say it. Cool. Well, yeah. Let's get into a little bit of a Q&A. I remember we were talking about one question you brought up. What was that again?
There was a few I had. I'll just bring them up real quick.
So yeah, in this section, we're going to go over some Q&A. So we want you guys to feel free to definitely hit us up at our Instagram. It's 2 guys, 1 bench. And you can send us some questions there. We'll be doing some weekly stories and stuff like that. So you guys can hit us up there. Also in the YouTube channel, please, besides calling us fat fucks, ugly, and some pale ass light skinned brother and the palest ass vanilla gorilla you've ever seen, which used to be my Instagram tag, but I had to get rid of that one. I am the Canadian Grizzly now. Let's go just the first one. So this is a topic, you know, that we often talk about as coaches. And what is the question?
The question is how to recognize a fraud coach.
Exactly, how to recognize a fraud coach. So, in my perspective, I've seen a lot of personal trainers / coaches in various sports that are way out of their league, and they're even in MMA. I've seen, you know, these kids are putting all their effort and training into this one coach or a couple that I've seen, and they're not. I feel bad for them because they could do so much more if they had the right guidance. Same thing with you know, powerlifting. Every time we go to a meet, we usually accrue a few more lifters because they see us, you know, lifting and pushing our limits. And that's one of my biggest things is if you're not lifting and if you aren't pushing your limit and you don't know what it's like to, you know, have 600 pounds or whatever it is on your back, that's, you know, something that most people have never done, then I don't think you're in a position to coach someone. I don't care how many degrees you have, if you've, you know, taken a kines degree or sports med, whatever the hell it is. You know, I have doctors come to me to learn how to train. They're not, you know, if they're not doing it themselves, I feel, you know, hey,
you got to practice what you preach.
Exactly. I mean, would you go to a dentist that had no teeth?
Yeah, it's From my side on that, finding a fraud coach comes down to a couple things, and it's pretty easy. When you're more experienced, you'll be able to pick it out. But I see so many coaches out there who fall into a couple categories. There's the guys they're the salesmen of the group.
No.
They like to sell the fact that they have a revolutionary way that no one else does. Well, I hate to break it to you, but every way pretty much out there to train has been done. If you think you're doing something revolutionary, there's probably someone who in Russia back in the day who did it. There's someone out in Europe who's already done it. There's nothing really like new age in what we're doing. So anytime someone's marketing something as their special trick or they're something that no one else is doing, they're probably full of shit, because it's the world. There's so many people out there. Someone has done what you're trying to preach to other people. You're just trying to repackage it in another bullshit way so you can draw people in. And then unfortunately, people get hurt by that or misled by it, or they just get no results and get taken advantage of, because you're giving people your money. You expect them to be trustworthy, but all they want to do is feed you bullshit.
Yeah, for sure. And, we're not talking exclusively with powerlifting or...
I saw it a lot with basketball. After I was done playing, I was coaching a lot and training and as a skills trainer. You'll see it all over Instagram, all these pro coaches that are got these athletes, and they, just because they have the title NBA trainer beside them, they think they're the greatest trainer in the world. It's like, well, you got to take in a couple things in consideration. You're training an NBA player. He's an elite athlete, and he will be good at whatever you give him. So any trainer he goes to, for the most part, is going to be good. 2, if you didn't have him since he was a kid who couldn't dribble a basketball, or you didn't significantly improve him, don't take credit for him, because that wasn't your work. And that's what we see a lot of. And then there's the guys who overcomplicate everything. Oh, let me have you do 40 crossovers here, attack, pull up, spin. It's like, why don't we do stuff we're actually going to use in a game?
Exactly. I haven't played basketball in years, but I played in high school, and definitely could have used a coach. Running suicides and just doing basic ass drills wasn't enough, but I was never destined to be on a basketball court. So that's not my thing. But given Dorrell's perspective, that's pretty awesome. He played down in the States, and his dad was a pro baller, so that's pretty cool. All right, so we're hitting our 45-minute mark here, coming up pretty quick, and that's usually all the time we want to give and force you to listen to. To be frank, there's a lot of podcasts out there that are a little too verbose and long. So if you can listen to this to work and back and keep entertained, that's awesome. Let us know. Like I said, reach out to our Instagram. 2 guys, 1 bench.
If you have any ideas or any topics you want us to go off on, let us know. Any rants you have, whatever it may be, just put it in the story, send it in as a message.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, interested about this. What did you think about this fight? What do you think about this event going on in Strongman? What do you think about this lifter with this total?
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to answer it. Nothing's really out of bounds for us.
Yeah, any kind of sport. We're trainers, we're performance coaches. We can help you with anything, in my opinion. So reach out in that way. How can people find you, Dorrell?
For me, you can reach me on my main page, which is @dpetties on Instagram, or you can reach me on the team page that I head coach of, @Generation Strength. That's just one word. Generation Strength Club. It's a team I coach in the 100% Raw Federation. Awesome. Strongest team in the Raw Federation in Canada. And both members. Yeah,
man. Yeah, it's been a great journey training with you, with the team as well. And if you want to find me, I'm on Instagram under The Canadian Grizzly. There's periods between each word. You can also find me at my website, Muteki Strong. Muteki is Muteki. So www.mutekistrong.com, and you can reach out to me there. If you want to get a coach for MMA performance, powerlifting, strength, anything like that, reach out to me or Dorrell. I mean, this is what we live for. We're not trying to do a 9-to-5 job. You know, we put in hard work every day in the gym with our clients and ourselves. So in terms of people having experience, this is what we're doing every day. This is what we live for. And we're not planning on changing that. So spend some time getting to know us on social media or whatever. And then we look forward to you guys listening to us every week. That'd be awesome. Whether you don't or you do, we're going to keep on doing it. So
yeah,
yeah,
doesn't really matter. We're going to be here every week.
We're
regardless.
stubborn, man. Just, you know, it's like lifting weights. Whether you like it or not, we're going to be doing it. But definitely tune in. We're going to plan on doing one once a week for now. If we get some more time and some more traction, then we'll definitely do some more. So
thank you everyone who did tune in and listen.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
All right, peace.
2 guys, 1 bench. Home Gyms YYC.